Rain splattered against the cracked windows of Sarah's tiny rented room. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but sleep had long abandoned her. Bills lay scattered across the wooden table, each one a reminder of the weight she carried on her frail shoulders. Life had been cruel to her. Her father passed away when she was only 16, her mother battled a long illness that drained the family's savings, and now, at 26, she was juggling part-time caregiving jobs just to survive. Despite the exhaustion etched into her bones, Sarah carried a smile for those who needed her. She believed one thing firmly: kindness had a way of coming back, even if it took years. When the local caregiving agency called her one morning with a new assignment, she almost refused. She had been working double shifts at a diner and attending night classes for nursing, barely keeping her body alive. But the agency's voice was pleading, saying, "This woman is lonely. She needs someone gentle." Sarah sighed, wiped her tired eyes, and accepted. The address led her to a grand old house sitting on the edge of town. It wasn't new and polished like the modern mansions. It was quiet, elegant, and slightly worn with age. Sarah knocked softly, and when the door opened, she was greeted by Mrs. Evelyn, a frail elderly woman with silver hair tied neatly in a bun. Her soft, wrinkled face lit up when she saw Sarah. "You must be the new caregiver," Evelyn said, her voice trembling yet kind. "Please, come in." Sarah stepped into the house. Despite its grandeur, it felt empty, like laughter had not touched its walls in years. Dusty family portraits lined the hallways, and a large grandfather clock ticked solemnly in the corner. Evelyn guided Sarah to the living room, where they sat across from each other. "My son is busy," Evelyn whispered, lowering her gaze. "He works far away, always caught up in meetings and businesses. I barely see him. Sometimes I wonder if he even remembers me." Sarah's heart clenched. She knew loneliness too well. She reached across the table and gently touched the woman's hand. "Don't worry, Mrs. Evelyn. I'll be here for you." And from that day on, Sarah kept her promise. She cooked Evelyn's meals, read her books aloud, helped her walk in the garden, and even brushed her hair while humming old lullabies. Evelyn's eyes often grew moist, whispering, "You remind me of how I used to care for my son when he was small." Sarah never asked about the son. She assumed he was just another man too busy climbing the corporate ladder to look back. She didn't know that his name was Daniel Crawford, a man whose face was often on the covers of business magazines, a CEO millionaire running one of the country's largest companies. To Sarah, it didn't matter. What mattered was the warmth she could offer this elderly woman who deserved dignity and love. Her days grew brighter, though her own life was falling apart. Her landlord threatening eviction, her stomach often empty, her body aching from lack of rest, she poured every drop of energy into caring for Evelyn. At night, when Evelyn slept, Sarah often sat by the window, gazing at the stars, whispering prayers that maybe one day, life would show her mercy. But mercy often arrives quietly, in ways we least expect. It was a crisp morning when Sarah arrived at the house with a basket of fresh fruit she bought from the market. Money was short, but she didn't care. Evelyn's smile was worth every sacrifice. As she entered the kitchen, she noticed Evelyn sitting at the table, sipping tea, her hands trembling more than usual. "My son is coming today," Evelyn whispered, her eyes both anxious and excited. "It's been months since I saw him." Sarah smiled warmly, though her chest tightened with worry. She hoped this man would not brush off his mother's needs. She hoped he had the heart to see how precious his time was to her. Hours later, the doorbell rang. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door. Standing there was a tall man in an expensive suit, polished shoes, and a face that seemed oddly familiar. His eyes were sharp yet weary, as though the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "I'm here to see my mother," he said curtly. Sarah nodded and guided him inside. Evelyn's face lit up at the sight of him, but Sarah noticed the hesitation in his hug, the distance in his touch. After serving tea, Sarah quietly stepped away to give them privacy, but the walls of the old house carried every word. "Mother, you know I'm busy," Daniel said. "I can't be here every day. The company. I don't want your company, Daniel, Evelyn interrupted softly. I want your time. But when you can't give me that, I'm grateful I have Sarah. She's been like a daughter to me. Daniel's gaze shifted toward the doorway where Sarah was arranging books. His brows furrowed. Later, when Evelyn dozed off for her afternoon nap, he confronted Sarah. Why are you here? His voice carried suspicion. Do you know who I am? Are you expecting money? Hoping for charity? Sarah's eyes widened in shock. No, she said firmly. I didn't even know who you were until now. I don't care about your wealth. I care about your mother. She deserves kindness, not neglect. Her voice was steady, but inside, her heart raced. Daniel stared at her, trying to read the truth in her eyes. For years, people had surrounded him with false smiles and hidden agendas. Yet here was a woman with torn shoes, a faded apron, and tired eyes speaking to him with honesty and courage. The next few days, Daniel watched silently as Sarah cared for his mother. He saw the way she gently massaged Evelyn's hands, how she listened with patience when Evelyn shared stories from the past, how she never complained even when exhaustion was etched into her face. Slowly, something shifted in him. One evening, he found Sarah sitting by the garden bench, staring at the stars just as Evelyn had fallen asleep. Her face was pale from fatigue, but her eyes held hope. Why do you do this? He asked quietly. Because kindness is free, Sarah replied. And sometimes, it's the only thing people need to survive. Her words pierced through Daniel's guarded heart. For the first time in years, he reflected on his choices, the empire he had built, the wealth he had gathered, and the time he had stolen from his mother's fading years. And suddenly, all of it seemed meaningless compared to the love this struggling caregiver gave so freely. In the weeks that followed, Daniel began visiting more often. He took time off work, something his board had never seen him do. He shared meals with his mother, laughed at old stories, and even helped Sarah in the kitchen. Slowly, he mended the bond he had once neglected. And though he never admitted it aloud, it was Sarah who had reminded him of what truly mattered. One afternoon, as Sarah prepared to leave, Daniel stopped her at the doorway. He handed her an envelope. I don't want your money, Sarah said quickly, pushing it back. Daniel shook his head. This isn't charity. It's an offer. You said you're studying nursing, right? Let me sponsor your education. The world needs more people like you. And I need to do this, not just for you, but for my mother, for everything you've done for her. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. For the first time in years, she felt the universe was finally rewarding her silent sacrifices. She accepted the envelope with trembling hands, whispering, "Thank you." That night, Evelyn held Sarah's hands and said, "You've given me more than care, my dear. You've given me family." The story of a struggling caregiver and a forgotten mother had become the story of redemption, kindness, and new beginnings.